l'enfant.
Hey everyone. My name's Halim, and what I'm going to share today is part of a longer course. It's a 2-day course about retention mainly that I usually give to all the startups that are part of Startup Garage, Facebook's Startup Garage. So I gave this on Tuesday and Wednesday. You're only going to get the first 20 minutes of a 2-day workshop, but it's still pretty interesting. The rest of the workshop gets pretty technical, pretty fast. If you're ever interested in that, try to join Startup Garage and launch a company first. The course is called Product Building Fundamentals. And what you're going to leave with today is basically the framework that we use to prioritize, make decisions, and manage products. And it's pretty simple. It comes down to 3 words: understand, identify, and execute. If you're not a product manager today, here in the room, it's still pretty useful to make a lot of decisions, be it personal or in any other role, especially if you're working with something that's going to stick around for a long time. Okay. My name's Halim, again. A bit about me. I'm Lebanese, from Lebanon. I left when I was 17, came to Paris. I lived here for 8 years, donc je parle français. I studied at the Sorbonne, and then I went to Dauphine, and then I did a master's in machine learning and product and data mining at the University of Toronto. I came back to Europe. I launched the company. Actually, I worked for Rocket Internet for a year. Did a bunch of clones, launched Jumia in Africa, Nigeria specifically. Then I found an idea while at Rocket Internet called CardSpring, which is basically a way to link your card to discounts and to turn your existing credit or debit card into a loyalty card. It seemed fascinating. I tried to pitch it internally. It didn't work out, and so I launched that same company with some friends in London. 2.5 years in, I was trying to expand that same company in Brazil, and we got acquired. I didn't make enough money to retire, but enough money to just spend 6 months in Brazil not doing much. And after that, I went to San Francisco and launched another company and another company. The last one was a huge, I wish I could say huge success. It's still around, it's still working, but the company grew to become a 27-person team. It was a AI-powered personal assistant service for Silicon Valley CEOs for $10,000 a month. I left because we weren't focused on AI as much as I wanted to, but the company's still doing well. If you're interested, it's called Invisible, invisible.com, invisible.tech, T-E-C-H. Once that was done, I left to work for Nike, and the mini startup I was responsible for was a way to rent clothes instead of selling them. So it was Nike's first sustainability initiative, really. I realized pretty quickly that Nike was not a technology company. It took a year. And after that, I joined Facebook. I worked on your Facebook profile for 1.5 years. And for the last 8 months, I've been at Oculus. I've always been passionate about virtual reality ever since I saw a movie called Dear Angelica. And it's been a roller coaster since then, mainly ups. I'm really proud of what we launched 2 weeks ago, Oculus Quest. It's the first wire-free device, so you can actually experience VR without being linked to a computer. And I'm really looking forward to the next few months. Cool, that's me. Let's focus on you, your job, and what's coming. What is even product management at Facebook? I'm going to tell you a bit more about that, and then we're going to jump into these 3 words: understand, execute, identify, and execute. And we're really going to focus on the understand bit of it. Okay, cool. Very simple. Product is a thing produced by work, and management is the conducting of something. Put simply, what product managers do at Facebook, and this is really the job description, is transforming problems into valuable products for both people or companies or whoever your end customer and user is. Prioritizing ruthlessly. You will see posters in the company, or if you've ever visited Facebook in Paris here, prioritize ruthlessly. It's one of my main jobs, and I'll dive a bit more into that. And then 3 is leading teams without authority. Unfortunately, fortunately, as a PM, you actually can't fire anyone. You don't just decide because someone isn't following the latest plan or not executing fast enough, you don't just decide to fire them. That's actually their manager's job. What you manage is the product. It isn't a number of human beings. And so at the end of the day, you need to influence people without authority. It ends up being hard for a founder who's fired a lot of people in the past, but it does teach you a bunch of things, namely patience. And this is, I think her name is Ruana Cordiano. She is a maestro, she is a conductor of the Berkeley Symphony. And what's really inspiring about conductors and maestros in general is that they might play some instruments, but they don't play all instruments. And what they do really well is that they make each person in that orchestra shine. Their job is to make the violinist and the pianist and each person in that team really do their best work. And that is, that's really the best metaphor I have for being a product manager. We've done a lot of things right at Facebook. Some examples here: Facebook Live, actually going mobile a bit too late, but hey, stories, specifically Instagram stories, carousels for ads, but we've done a lot of things really wrong. This is Facebook Lite on web. I'm not going to even talk about this. We've tried to invent new ways to log in and become your, Facebook login works, but we had a new way to log in at one point with on your application and didn't really go really far. We even had a Facebook phone at one point, if you remember. That didn't go any further. But there's some stuff that we did understand. We failed a lot. We've done some things right, but we do have patterns that we now use. These specific 3 words, understand, identify, and execute, came up almost 5 years ago. So 10 years into Facebook's life, right? Facebook has been around for 15 years now. And these are literally the words we use when we're presenting to a VP, going into a review, going in planning session. What the VP will ask is something like, are you in the understand phase? Are you in the, is this an identify review? Is this an execute review? Are we just reviewing where you're at in your execution, etc. Right? So we truly run by these words. What you see on the left, and these are 2 posters you will see all over the place at Facebook. Do the most important things is really the essence of, or the attitude that you need to embody as a PM, especially at Facebook. You've seen maybe a couple of weeks ago how the company really pivoted. If you really think about what's happened at Facebook, we are pivoting from just being focused on the feed to being focused on all these messaging apps. If you've seen the latest F8, Mark had a huge slide behind him saying the future is private. That wasn't exactly what we were saying, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We were hoping you would share more and more publicly. But we've gotten with the times and we understand what's happening now. And the future is private. We are very invested in messaging. It's very simple if you look at Line in Japan or other messaging apps, how evolved they are, how WeChat, how rich WeChat is. You can find a job on WeChat. You can spend your day on WeChat. Not on Messenger. You can only message on Messenger. And so our ambition is to understand better what we've been calling the living room, where you live privately with the people that matter to you, which is really messaging apps. Okay? So that pivot came from really one thing, doing the most important thing. It's Mark, who's the head of product in the company at the end of the day, sitting in a room with a bunch of VPs and just realizing, thanks to research and data, that this is not working anymore, and we need to focus on something else. I mean, it's working very well, but if we want it to work even better, we need to do the most important things. Cool. So, understand, identify, and execute is an approach to solving problems and building products. I'm going to make it really simple. Let's take a Paleolithic family. They have a mission: survive. Pretty simple. And as you know, it's a patriarchal society, so for some reason they chose the man to do this thing. There's no real reason to do that, but hey, the man decides to go and catch some fish. That's what he decides is the goal, the best goal, to actually make that mission, to actually achieve that mission. So he chooses just a lake that he really likes. He likes playing at that lake, and so he goes to that lake and tries to fish, but he forgets the bait. That's pretty bad execution. It's that simple. Perfect execution, in other words, I mean, execution is the easiest part of that, of these three words. Perfect execution is execution that leaves no question as to whether the plan or the goal were good or bad. As a startup, you are one big experience trying to prove something is right or wrong, right? You have, your mission is basically a big hypothesis you're trying to prove. If your execution is perfect, it leaves no question as to whether you've invalidated or validated your hypotheses, right? So from an abstract point of view, from intellectually speaking, that is what execution is at the end of the day, right? If you mess it up, then you have doubts. Is it because of my execution, or is it because my plan and my mission and my goal were not the right ones? Let's do this again. Our friend goes to the same lake, and this time he does not forget about his bait. However, he still doesn't find any fish. Why? Well, he just chose a lake that he likes. The lake doesn't have any fish. I just find this hilarious. And honestly, it's very common. You have a friend that comes to you and they're like, oh my God, I have the best idea ever. It's Uber for hospitals. You just think for a second, I think you're jumping too fast to the solution versus thinking a bit more about the problem you're trying to solve. And we do that a lot. If you're a product manager or work in a startup, you're going to go for the solutions you really like. You have, this task or this feature that you're like, oh, this would be amazing. And you have zero proof to back it up. We do this all the time. And you try to reverse engineer how you even got to that solution by inventing some data or some research, right? Intellectual dishonesty, basically. I'm not calling you liars, but hey. And so that's a bad identify. Good identification means identifying the best way to achieve your goal. So here's an example. Again, our guy. So he goes to another river. Guess what? There's fish in this river. And he does find the fish. But the fish is going to allow his, his family to survive for a day. The real opportunity was right there. There was a deer he could have killed. And actually, if that was a vegan family, I mean, obviously this would not be a solution, or a pescatarian family. But hey, suppose this is a primal carnivore family. This was the real opportunity, right? This was what he should have gone after. And so the big mistake he did, basically, is really understanding all of this wrong. He had a mission, surviving, and then he decided on a goal, catch some fish. That was not the right goal. He should have sat down a bit and just thought, what is the right goal? And so good understand means understanding the highest impact goal that will help you achieve your mission. If our mission as a company, so back to that example, if our mission as a company, as Facebook, is to connect the people around the world and empower them with and give them the power of community, we should not be focused on feed anymore. We should be focused on Messenger. Cool. All right, so you get it. Understand is what your goal is and why it matters. Identify is where the best opportunities are to achieve the goal, and executing is executing perfectly on the plan. Let me get a bit more into details on the understand part. I'm actually not going to cover the identify and execute. The understand part is really the making of the best PMs. At the end of the day, your job, yes, is about being a great translator. Yes, it's about being there to prioritize. But if you really dig into what prioritization is, it's about strategy, right? The reason why product managers at one point were called mini CEOs is because they need to master strategy. What is it that is truly going to have the highest impact for me to drive and achieve my mission? Okay. People problems. You've probably heard about this. So understanding is about people problems. Back to this thing. So we identified what a bad understand is. It's going for the fish when there's a deer right next door that you could actually go and hunt. This is Julie Zhu. She's the head of product design at Facebook. She's been there for 13 years. Good Lord. And she has 3 questions she tries to focus on during the understand process. The whole thing comes down to understanding, focusing on problems and goals versus solutions. Okay, so here's a very practical example. Let's say you and your team decide to go for an offsite, and you decide to go to Brussels, and you tell them we're going to go to Brussels, and then you say we're going to go to Brussels by car, and they get excited. They're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. And then you sit down and you say, actually, it's better to go by plane. And then you tell them, actually, we're going to go by plane. Like, oh, by plane? No, we really wanted to go by car. And they completely forgot that the mission was to go to Brussels, right? Who cares about the means to get there? Who cares about the solution? The goal is to get to Brussels, guys. Okay. So lots of times people get too attached to solutions rather than the problem you are trying to solve or the goal you are trying to achieve. And this is part of our PM training program, by the way. Okay, so question number 1. What people problem are we trying to solve? 3 questions all in all. First one. Here's an example of a bad people problem. My problem is to increase the CTR of product page landing. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't help anyone. That doesn't get the team excited either. And that doesn't help you create a roadmap. What you really need is the following. You need a problem that is human, straight. I'm going to give an example. Human, simple, and straightforward. It needs to be agnostic of solutions, as I explained a second ago. It needs to even be agnostic of the company winning. That shouldn't be the goal. You know, very often we think, oh, if we develop this, we're going to beat the competition. That shouldn't even factor into your thinking when you're framing the people problem. Third, gets at the why. I'm going to jump into that later. Functional, emotional, and social. These number 4 and 5 should speak for themselves, but I'll give a practical example. Julie is one of the organizers of Mom 2.0, the Mom 2.0 Summit, which is a huge summit for parenting and the parenting industries and all the technologies that goes into that. And one of the problems she actually hit upon while she was there is, I want to talk about an interest with other people who are also interested by the same thing, but I don't know where to find these people. This is based on having talked to people and on some data that we've found ourselves. Let me explain a bit more. And first give another example, and we'll dive into these 2 examples. You've probably seen how we've introduced reactions at one point at Facebook. The 5 kinds of reactions, the angry reaction being the one the least people use, and the love reaction and the like reaction that are still, some of the most prominent ones. The way we discovered this was not just by sitting down and thinking, oh, a lot of people are telling us we'd like the dislike button. For a long time there was, why is there a like button? We'd love a dislike button. Well, is this really, you're already giving me the solution. What is the problem behind it? And when we dug for the problem, it was specifically, and this is where words become so important, not everything I see in newsfeed is likable. I want more ways to easily express how I'm really feeling about something. So what people wanted was not a dislike button. They actually wanted to express a wider spectrum of emotions. If you miss that problem, if you simply think, oh, people dislike stuff on Facebook, so we should give them a dislike button, you're going the wrong way. Cool. Second question, how do we know this is a real problem? So we've identified the fact that you can't find people who have the same interests as you as a problem and can't find them. And 2, the fact that you can't actually like not everything on newsfeed is actually likable. How do you know it's a real problem? There are 2 ways. There's quantitative evidence, qualitative evidence. Basically, if you're in a small company where you don't have data scientists and user research, you have to do it yourself. I've done it myself in the companies I was a part of. Basically setting up the logging with engineers, knowing what people are clicking on, establishing funnels, blah, blah, blah. And the real part is as important, because once you've proved that the problem is there, you need to prove that it's real, as in it's worth solving. It has a big enough impact for you to solve. An example is, people, when we used to be on profile, people used to ask, can I just I want to block my profile on Facebook just like I do on Instagram, for instance, right? Why can I not just make everything private? Well, the truth is, this isn't a real problem. When we look at all the countries, all the countries that use Facebook in the world, that's not something that they express that often. Not everyone wants their Facebook profile to act like their Instagram profile. Okay, so back to the groups. And back to that problem. I want to talk about an interest with other people who are also interested, but I don't know where to find these people. The way we started digging into this problem and really understanding whether it was a real problem is by looking at the data. Over 1/3 of all new group memberships come from groups you should join. We have a recommendation page called Groups You Should Join, and this is how people were actually joining. And that in itself is an indicator that people are looking at these groups, understanding whether this is one of their interests and actually joining that group. And so in other terms, they are looking for people who are interested in the same thing they are, right? The second thing we did is just talk to people, and we talk to people a lot. I'm constantly traveling just to talk to people that aren't like us. It's very easy to just speak to the team itself or speak to people in your building, etc. But you need people that are very diverse. And I've had to go to Brazil and Vietnam, etc., just to talk to people and better understand what their needs are what their problems are with Facebook profile. So these are 3 examples of moms, physician moms finding advice on a group and really finding value in that group. A typical example of wanting to connect with people who are in the same school as you, and then people who are in the same profession as you are. Again, back to things interest. And this is how we build the Discover tab. If you look at your Facebook today, there is a tab dedicated to groups, and the major focus is actually on discovery. The other thing was about reactions. Not everything I see in newsfeed is likable. I want more ways to easily express how I'm really feeling about something. And the data is pretty clear on this one. There should be, so one, anecdotally, what people were saying to us is there should be more ways to easily and quickly express how something you see in newsfeed makes you feel. But more so, remember the pre-reaction era, when we had to use basically stickers that express the other emotions. If you really felt, like your heart was bursting because someone, was truly vulnerable in one of their posts, you're not going to use a like. You're going to go a bit further, write a specific comment, or put a sticker of sorts. If somebody just lost someone and wants to express it on Facebook, you're not going to put a like, for God's sake. Who are you? And so top stickers and emojis, and then the most searched for stickers actually indicated what was the path forward. And then the last one was we actually analyzed anonymously what the most common comments were, and that helped us create reactions as well. And so that's how this came to be. This is usually a video, but you can imagine what's happening. Awesome. All right, third question. How will we know if we've solved the problem? And this is not something you do after you've solved the problem. This is something you do before you've solved the problem. It's very important to set measurable goals and metrics, else you're actually going to, if you start figuring out your metric while you're solving it, you're going to mess things up. One of the first things we're asked for when we start a new product, a 0 to 1 product, is what are we, when you're starting to launch a product, so the idea, you're beyond the inception phase, is what are we going to measure? What is this going to move, right? And one great way to do it is to hire a medium. No, it's not. It's called the crystal ball technique, and it's pretty simple. You just imagine what the future is going to be like if you solve that problem, right? And so in a world, for instance, where people, in a world where we've solved that problem, just think about the crystal ball. What does that world look like? Because this is going to help you set the right metric. And a world like that is not a world where more people are joining groups. That's not enough. That's very easy to game, actually. We can put a button in your feed, 2 billion people, everyone's clicking on joining groups. We haven't moved the needle on anything because they're just joining a group they're not going to engage in. And so the metric needs to get to the end result. What the end result is people actually excited about joining groups. And so people, yes, join more groups after going through the Discover tab, but also people engage and get value from the groups they've joined. Okay? And this is how thorough you need to be when you're launching a new product. All right. The other problem about reactions, this is a very funny clip, by the way, Lonely Island with Jimmy, but hey. The other one is goals and measurements. People share, so what is that, if this works, what happens? People share more feedback with reactions than they did previously. That's important. So not only have we replaced likes by reactions, but we've captured a bigger spectrum of what people want to express. And so the total number of reactions has increased. There are suddenly much more than there was before. Each reaction gets a fair amount of usage. Most of them do. The least popular one is the angry one, for some reason. And then people who receive reactions on their posts consider them valuable. You could think about this thing as a marketplace at the end of the day, right? People giving reactions, people receiving reactions. And so just like an Uber driver who, when they receive a lot of, they get a lot of rides, use Uber more versus Captain or something else, right? And so in this world, if I'm getting more reactions, I should be posting more. So that's the logic. Cool. Cool. And so these are the three problems. What people problem are we the three questions. What people problem are we trying to solve? How do we know this is a real problem? And how will we know if we've solved this problem? And this is one big slide you can take a picture of just to know what we've been talking about. That's it, everyone. Thank you. Oh, sorry. C'est super comme ça, après tout le haut d'énergie, on peut se calmer un peu. Cool. OK, thank you. Que l'enfant